question for you. Why do some people sabotage relationships even though they desperately, desperately want to feel loved and safe? The answer might surprise you, and it actually might have a lot more to do with your attachment style than you think. My name is Jason Van Ruler. I am a therapist and expert in attachment. I'm also the author of the book, Get Past Your Past. And I'm here to talk to you today about what disorganized attachment is, how it affects relationships, how it plays out, and what you can do about it if it's something you're struggling with or somebody else is struggling with. And so if you've had this situation before that I just described where you go, why do I sabotage every relationship? Or you've had that friend or that person you care about that you watch get into relationship after relationship and sabotage that when seemingly it could have been a healthy relationship or something that would have lasted, and you just go, man, I'm just kind of used to you being in this place of having a relationship and then being all about it. Everything is great, positive, and then it doesn't work. What is going on? And so I want to talk to you a little bit about that. Now, if you're not familiar, attachment styles really have a lot to do with our childhood and our caregivers, right? And so there's a lot of work done on attachment and really how we related to our caregivers is what makes up our attachment style. And so our attachment style, there's four of them. One is secure, which is the attachment style we all want to have, right? And so a secure attachment style means we could trust our parents and they were a place of safety and security for us and we knew we were okay, right? So just, I would kind of boil this down, and I know this isn't a long explanation, but attachment really is how we view ourselves and relationships in the world, and it's based on our childhood experiences. So secure attachment is, I feel like I'm okay, I can trust people, I can be myself, that's safe. Anxious attachment is, I do not know that I'm okay and I need a relationship to prove that I'm okay, and so my value and self-worth is tied up in a relationship. Avoidant attachment is, relationships are scary and so I don't get close to people because then they can hurt me. And disorganized attachment we're talking about today is really, it's at the intersection of wanting a relationship really badly, being terrified, and so it's kind of this idea of like one foot on the gas, one foot on the brake. And this often develops when caregivers were both a source of comfort, but also a fear. And so it's very, very confusing for kids if the people who comfort you and you love one minute then turn on you the next minute, and now you're afraid of them. And so Mary Main and Judith Solomon back in the 80s did some research on this with attachment theory. And they just say basically it comes from inconsistent, neglectful, or abusive caregiving. So obviously it's a really difficult situation. And as a child, you didn't ask for any of that. I mean, that's nothing that you did to deserve that, but it happened. And so what comes from that when we have disorganized attachment is that we have a difficulty trusting others. We have a fear of abandonment, yet also a fear of intimacy, right? So it's those two are kind of paradoxical problems, is I have a fear of abandonment, but I also have a fear of intimacy. And so I want that relationship, but I get close and then I pull back. And so it's kind of that back and forth all the time. And then have a real struggle with emotional dysregulation. So how does this show up in relationships? Well, I've done lots of work over the years, retreats, workshops, gotten to work with tons and tons of people with different attachment styles. And I'll just kind of tell you what I have seen as a clinician in people with disorganized attachment. So the first thing is this push-pull dynamic like I talked about. One minute they're all in and the next they're pulling away. It can feel very chaotic, confusing, exhausting for both the person going through it and their partner, right? Everyone kind of has this whiplash is what I talk to them about, where they're just like, hey, I thought we were on, now we're off. I thought we were off, now we're on. What is going on? So that's kind of one of the hallmarks if you're in a relationship with someone who's struggling with disorganized attachment, is this real confusion about kind of how are we actually doing, because it seemed like this, but now it's shifted to this. Also sabotaging connection. So you might see someone who craves closeness, but then they sabotage it because deep down they're scared it's going to hurt. And it's this whole idea of kind of wincing and going like, I know how this is going to end. I know what's going to happen. And so I take a step back, or I even push back or push you away. I'm safe because then I anticipated the thing that I knew was going to happen. And hopefully this prevents me from getting hurt so badly, right? It's kind of like if we know we're going to fall, we put our hands down to kind of prevent the impact. And so that's what people with disorganized attachment do, is they say, well, I know I'm going to fall, and so I'm going to like push away so that I can prevent some of this impact and damage that will happen. Also, you might note emotional triggers. Small misunderstandings can feel like major betrayals. Their nervous system is often scanning for danger even when there isn't any. And so if we can just have compassion for people in this space, it's a lot of work all the time. Right? It's just this constant feeling of like, I need to prevent imminent danger, and there's going to be danger. And so how can I anticipate, prevent it? How can I do something about it? And so it's very stressful. And then we have these emotional triggers that set us off, and they can be seemingly little things, but they touch on trauma basically that you've had in the past, and so then they have this big reaction. I kind of call this the sunburn effect, where if you have a sunburn but you're wearing a shirt over the sunburn, no one sees it, but they touch you, you have a big response, not because they hit you or hurt you that way, but because they touch something really sensitive and painful. And so we have these emotional triggers. Then we also have just some people who are really they're passionate one moment about a relationship, and the next minute they're second guessing it. They're not so sure. And so there's a lot of ambivalence about if the relationship is healthy or not. So what do we do when we're in this spot? Is there any hope? Well, yeah, absolutely there's hope. And the research is really good about this, because the research says people with insecure attachment styles, meaning any attachment style other than secure, can actually learn to be more securely attached by simply being around securely attached people. So just being in some of the right rooms are helpful, but let me talk you through what we can do if you're hearing this and you're like, this resonates with me a lot, Jason. This is me. Okay, well, the first thing that we want to do is just have awareness. Awareness is really always the first step. If you're hearing this and this is you, welcome to the club. Congratulations. Glad to have you. This is obviously not a formal diagnosis, so I would say if you're in this place of saying, like, I think that's me, that'd be great to talk to a clinician about and to get some more information. But I want to walk you through some of the patterns. So the first thing is awareness. Like, maybe this is me. I notice some of the patterns. I notice some of the themes. I do these things, because when we notice that, we can start to kind of see when we're doing it again. Right, and that's really hard, but if we can kind of go like, yeah, I'm doing that thing again that I do, where I push or I pull, okay, here it is, we can start to change something about it. Next is to do some therapy and to have some safe relationships. And I would argue therapy is a safe relationship, but you might do therapy like emotionally focused therapy, EFT, Sue Johnson, very helpful. You might do internal family systems or IFS. You might do some trauma treatment like EMDR, somatic healing, some things like that. But therapy can really model for us that safe relationship that we didn't get as kids, or that you missed, that is playing such a big role in all of this. Next is some self-compassion. One of the hardest things that I've noticed when working with somebody who has got disorganized attachment and knows they have it is that they're pretty quick to disqualify themselves and just say, like, who would want to be with me? Right? I should just back off. I should just not try to pursue relationships because I'm going to break it. I'm going to ruin it. I'm going to do something. And I just have to tell you, like, that's not true. You have a lot of grace and compassion for people who struggle with this and people who want to be different. And I always tell people I would have a depressing job if there was no hope. So there's a ton of hope. And so you got to have some hope, but you also have to have some compassion. And just note that healing does not come from self-criticism. It comes from self-compassion. You did not choose this, right? But you could choose to heal if you want. So some of the things that you could do would be to journal and identify triggers. What does set me off? What is this sunburn? You know, if someone says this word or someone approaches me this way or this happens, I tend to have a reaction. And then you might kind of work through, what would I do differently? So what might I do to prevent that or to stop that? You want to have some mindfulness to regulate emotions. Meditation is super helpful. There's Headspace, there's the Calm app, there's a ton of apps. But practicing some meditation and being able to be aware of how we're feeling and to regulate that, and then gradual exposure to vulnerability. Because really what this is about is we were vulnerable as children, we were taken advantage of and hurt, and so as a result there's walls around us and we struggle a lot to be vulnerable. And so gradually with safe people we can practice being vulnerable, and when we do that with safe people we begin to see, hey, this is okay, it's different, right? That was then, this is now. Maybe when I was a kid, my parents weren't safe people, and that was different. But today as an adult, I see that there's people who love me well, and so I'm safe to try some of this. So if this is you, or a friend, or a partner, just know disorganized attachment is not a life sentence. It's a story you can rewrite with patience, support, and self-compassion. It does take work, but hey, all the best things in life take work, and so it's worth it. And if it resonated with you, just know that healing's possible. You're not broken, you're human. I think sometimes we can get so attached to this label or this identity, and so I'll meet with people, sometimes they'll say, well, I'm disorganized attachment, or I'm avoidant, and that's just how I am forever. And I just kind of argue with that, because I believe we can change. I don't believe it's easy to change, but I believe we can. And so I just want to say, if you want to dive deeper into this and you want more videos on relationships, you can find me on social media platforms. And also just let me know in the comments what you would like to hear more on. Again, I talk a lot about attachment and relationships and trauma, couples and communication and all those good things. And so I just want to be helpful as much as I can be to you, because my ultimate goal, truly, as a person who's been anxiously attached, is that I want to help people have better relationships with themselves and others and show up as the best version of themselves. And so any way I can help you do that, I want to do that for you. And just know, owning your story is definitely hard, but it's not nearly as difficult as spending your life running from it. So own your story, own your future, take the next step. I'm Jason Van Riller.